LPGA Tour had Caitlin Clark play. And the LPGA, fans, the event was taken over by the ominous crowd. Sure, to go get angry at everything Caitlin Clark did and everything Caitlin Clark does and was ever going to do, and made it that she was the problem and not the solution. The LPGA, you can see when it came to them that they were happy that Caitlin Clark was there. They knew exactly the value that Caitlin Clark brought to the whole event. They saw how important it was that new fans were getting involved in golf, especially women's.
One single athlete just exposed a billion-dollar truth, sending shockwaves through the entire world of professional sports. And it didn't happen on a basketball court. It happened on the quiet, manicured greens of a golf course. When Caitlin Clark stepped onto the grass at an LPGA event, something unprecedented occurred. The event transformed from a niche sports tournament into a cultural epicenter, buzzing with an energy golf hasn't seen in decades. The LPGA, in a brilliant move of foresight, didn't just welcome her. They celebrated her, amplified her, and understood that her presence was a gift. But while the world of golf was embracing the future, the WNBA was busy trying to bury its own golden ticket. As ratings for key matchups reportedly plummet by as much as 70%, a terrifying picture is emerging. One league is soaring by simply welcoming a star, while the other is facing a catastrophic implosion, seemingly fueled by internal hostility and a shocking refusal to capitalize on the biggest opportunity in its history. This isn't just about one player anymore. This is the story of two leagues, two mindsets, and one unavoidable question: is the WNBA actively sabotaging its own success? And did the LPGA just prove how easy it would be to win? Let's paint the picture of what happened when the LPGA invited Caitlin Clark, because it was nothing short of a phenomenon. Typically, professional golf tournaments are reserved affairs. There's a quiet dignity to them, a sense of tradition. The crowds are knowledgeable, respectful, and often predictable. But the moment Clark arrived, that entire dynamic was shattered. It was an invasion, but the best kind. The gates didn't just open to golf enthusiasts, they opened to a completely new demographic. Families who had never watched a golf swing in their lives showed up in droves. Kids in Iowa jerseys were running across fields, their parents chasing after them, all there for one reason. The atmosphere felt less like the Masters and more like a sold-out concert. The air crackled with excitement. Chants of her name echoed across the fairways, a sound utterly alien to the traditional golf landscape. People weren't there just to watch, they were there to be part of a moment. The LPGA's reaction to this glorious chaos was a masterclass in modern sports marketing. They didn't see a disruption, they saw an opportunity. They didn't see a basketball player stepping out of her lane. They saw a cultural icon who could bridge the gap between their world and the mainstream. Every camera followed her. Every social media post highlighted her. They put her alongside their own stars, like Nelly Korda, not to create a rivalry, but to create a spectacle. The message was clear: Caitlin Clark is here, and her fans are our fans. The players themselves echoed this sentiment. They spoke of the energy she brought, the new eyes she was drawing to their sport, and the undeniable positive impact of her celebrity. There was no resentment, no jealousy, only a shared understanding that a rising tide lifts all boats. The LPGA saw the big picture. They understood that in 2025, sports are not just about the game, they're about the personalities, the stories, and the moments that capture the public imagination. And in that one weekend, they captured it perfectly, gaining millions of dollars in free press and introducing their brand to a generation of potential new supporters. They played it smart, and they reaped the rewards instantly. Now, let's pivot to the staggering contrast. While the LPGA was hosting a festival of growth, the WNBA was broadcasting a clinic on self-destruction. The numbers that have begun to leak out are beyond alarming. We're hearing about viewership for certain games, even playoff implication games, dropping off a cliff, in some cases, by a reported 70% from their peak. How is this possible? How can a league with the most talked about rookie in a generation be shedding viewers at such a terrifying rate? The answer, it seems, lies in a culture that has chosen to reject its own savior. From the moment Caitlin Clark was drafted, The narrative wasn't one of celebration, but one of hostility. It started with dismissive comments in the media from veteran players, questioning her talent and claiming the hype was undeserved. It quickly escalated on the court. The hard fouls, the off-ball cheat shots, the aggressive behavior that went far beyond competitive fire, it all painted a picture of a league that didn't want her there. The infamous hip check seen around the world wasn't just a foul, it was a statement. It was a message from a certain segment of the league that this new star, and the millions of fans she brought with her, were not welcome. Instead of the league stepping in to protect its most valuable asset, the response was tepid, almost silent. The fines felt like a slap on the wrist, and the discourse that followed was even more damning. Pundits and even some players defended the aggression, labeling it as, "Welcome to the league," or "testing the rookie." But the public didn't see it that way. They saw bullying. They saw a concerted effort to diminish and physically intimidate a player who was single-handedly driving the league's relevance. The fans who tuned in to watch Caitlin Clark's revolutionary talent were instead met with a spectacle of bitterness. They came for basketball but were shown a soap opera of jealousy. And so, they began to tune out. The 70% drop isn't a statistical anomaly, it's a referendum. It's the audience voting with their remotes, sending a clear message: we will not watch a league that treats its biggest star like an enemy. The LPGA's success wasn't an accident, and the WNBA's decline isn't either. They are the direct consequences of two opposite philosophies, and one is proving to be a catastrophic failure. The catastrophic drop in viewership isn't just a reaction to a few hard fouls. It's a response to a deeply flawed ideology that has taken root within the WNBA. While a surface-level analysis points to jealousy, the real issue is far more corrosive. It's a culture of gatekeeping, a mindset that views new fans not as an asset to be welcomed, but as an invading force that doesn't deserve to be there. This sentiment has been bubbling under the surface for years, but Caitlin Clark's arrival blew the lid off of it. The league's old guard, and the media voices who protect them, seem to believe that appreciation for the WNBA has to be earned. They believe you must first pay homage to the league's history, respect the journey of its veterans, and understand the nuances of their struggle before you're allowed to cheer. But that is not how modern fandom works. People are drawn to stars. They are drawn to excitement. They don't fill out an application to become a fan. They are captured by a moment. Clark is that moment, and instead of leveraging it, the league has met her millions of followers with a series of purity tests, all of which they inevitably fail. This protectionist attitude is business malpractice of the highest order. Imagine if the NBA in 1984 had greeted Michael Jordan with hostility, if veteran players had made it their mission to physically assault him every game while the league looked the other way. Imagine if the league's message was, "You have to appreciate Kareem and Bird before you're allowed to like this new guy." The league would have never become the global powerhouse it is today. The NBA understood that Jordan was a gateway. His fans would come for him, but they would stay for the sport. They would learn about the other players, the teams, and the history as they went along. The WNBA has been handed a gateway of its own, a figure with the gravitational pull to single-handedly create a new generation of fans, and they have responded by trying to lock the gate. The league's leadership has been astonishingly passive, allowing a narrative of resentment to dominate the headlines. There has been no strong, unified message from the top down to celebrate their new star, protect her on the court, and welcome her followers with open arms. This institutional failure is perhaps even more damning than the actions of individual players. It signals a league adrift, without a clear vision for its own future. The fallout from this passive leadership has been an unmitigated public relations disaster. The clips of Clark being blindsided, hip-checked, and shoved to the floor haven't just circulated among WNBA fans. They've dominated mainstream sports media for weeks. Prominent commentators on major networks, who rarely dedicated more than a few seconds to the WNBA, were now running entire segments on the mistreatment of Caitlin Clark. They weren't just criticizing a few players. They were questioning the integrity and viability of the entire league. The narrative was no longer about basketball. It was about a league that appeared unprofessional, bitter, and out of touch. For every new fan that tuned in out of curiosity, this was the first impression they received. And it was an ugly one. Social media became a war zone, where potential new fans who expressed outrage over the rough play were shouted down by diehards, telling them they don't know ball, or that they were soft. This toxic environment, fostered by a lack of clear leadership, has done untold damage. It has created a chasm between the league's small but loyal base and the massive potential audience it desperately needs to survive. The message sent was loud and clear: if you are a Caitlin Clark fan, you are not one of us. And so, millions of people simply said, "Okay, we won't be." Contrast this PR nightmare with the seamless, positive experience offered by the LPGA. The golf league didn't just avoid a toxic environment, it actively cultivated an inclusive one. Their social media channels celebrated the new faces in the crowd. Their players gave interviews expressing excitement about the new energy. There was no us versus them. It was just us, a growing community brought together by a shared moment of excitement. The LPGA demonstrated a fundamental understanding of modern business: the customer is always right. If millions of customers show up at your doorstep, you don't question their motives. You open the door and invite them in. The WNBA, on the other hand, seems to be interrogating every new customer at the door, demanding they prove their worthiness before being allowed inside. This player-centric model, where the feelings and egos of a few veterans are prioritized over the health and growth of the entire enterprise, is a recipe for failure. The 70% ratings drop is the first invoice for that failure. It's a clear sign that the market is rejecting their product, not because the basketball isn't good, but because the culture surrounding it has become repellent. The league is at a crossroads, and the path it's currently on leads not to relevance, but to obscurity. The question is no longer if they can grow with Caitlin Clark, but if they can survive their own attempts to tear her down. This entire saga will be studied by business schools for the next 50 years as a perfect case study of opportunity versus ego. It's a lesson written in real time, with two organizations being given the exact same golden opportunity, and producing dramatically different results. The LPGA, a league with a fraction of the WNBA's mainstream media footprint, saw the gift for what it was. They understood that the Caitlin Clark effect was a rare phenomenon, a chance to draft off a cultural moment, and pull their entire sport into a new orbit of relevance. They acted decisively, inclusively, and intelligently. The WNBA, a league that has spent decades fighting for mainstream attention, was handed that attention on a silver platter and responded by trying to smash the platter to pieces. The results of these two approaches are now in, and they are not ambiguous. One league is being praised for its visionary marketing and is enjoying a wave of positive exposure. The other is staring down the barrel of a 70% ratings collapse and a public relations crisis spiraling out of control. The long-term consequences of this self-inflicted wound are far more devastating than just one season of bad ratings. The professional sports ecosystem runs on corporate dollars. Sponsorships, broadcast rights, and advertising deals are the lifeblood of any league. These partners are not investing in the sport itself. They are investing in the audience and the narrative surrounding the sport. And right now, the narrative surrounding the WNBA is toxic. What major brand wants to associate itself with a league that is now defined by infighting, jealousy, and the public bullying of its most popular star? What television network is going to happily pay a premium for broadcast rights when the viewership is in freefall? The reported 70% drop is a 5-alarm fire for any executive looking at the league's financials. It's a signal that the product is failing to connect with the wider audience it promised to deliver. Money follows hype, and it flees from dysfunction. As sponsors quietly review their commitments and advertisers look for safer places to spend their money, the WNBA may soon find that alienating Caitlin Clark's fans wasn't just a PR mistake. It was a multi-million-dollar financial blunder that could cripple the league for years to come. What the league's veterans and leadership failed to grasp is the fundamental power dynamic at play. There is the Caitlin Clark brand, and there is the WNBA brand, and they are not the same. The Caitlin Clark brand is now a global entity. It represents excellence, excitement, and a new era of women's athletics. Her success at the LPGA event proved that her appeal is not confined to basketball. She is a cultural figure who can generate headlines and draw massive crowds wherever she goes. She does not need the WNBA to be a star. But the WNBA absolutely needs her. The league's brand, unfortunately, is fast becoming synonymous with the very negativity that casual fans despise. If this trajectory continues, a future where Caitlin Clark finishes her rookie contract and explores other ventures, endorsements, broadcasting, even other sports, is not just possible, it's likely. She holds all the cards. The league needs her far more than she needs them, and every hard foul, every dismissive comment, only serves to remind her and her massive fan base of that fact. They are not just pushing away a rookie, they are pushing away their only lifeline. Ultimately, the WNBA is facing a choice. It can continue down this path of self-sabotage, catering to the insecurities of a few while the entire ship sinks, or it can undergo a radical, top-to-bottom cultural shift. It requires a league commissioner who is willing to lead, to publicly and forcefully declare that the league will celebrate its stars and protect its players. It requires a change in mindset from veterans, an acceptance that the goal is to grow the pie for everyone, not to hoard a few crumbs for themselves. But that window of opportunity is closing fast. The damage done in just a few short months may already be irreversible. The league has shown millions of potential fans its true colors, and it's a bitter, unwelcoming shade. Caitlin Clark gave the WNBA the key to the mainstream kingdom, a key they had been searching for since their inception. But when it was finally placed in their hand, they refused to turn it. Instead, they seemed determined to melt it down for scrap. And history will remember this moment not as the failure of a single player, but as the tragic, self-inflicted implosion of a league that was offered the world and chose to burn it all down.